Good morning and welcome to another installment of my van build. It's going to be a bit disorientating in terms of time because at the moment it's a frosty day and I'm about to switch to loads of summer footage. It's actually quite painful editing all this summer footage and hearing all the birds and seeing the leaves and being stood right now in the frost with no leaves. At least it's a beautiful day today. But yeah, I've got a massive backlog of footage to be getting through and I'm going to start bringing these videos out more frequently, otherwise it's going to last all the way into next year. You might notice as well, I have a flue in, I've got my fire running and it's running really well. It's really cozy. But first thing in the morning getting up to put the fire on is awful. So I went and bought a diesel heater as well and we'll be doing an installation on that. But yeah, I'm going to start bringing these videos a bit more frequently now because I need to get them out because it's almost time for me to hit the road. It might not look ready because he still needs a paint job, but I'm really going to struggle to do that in the winter. So that's probably something I'll have to do in the spring. But I'm almost ready to hit the road and start filming my adventures. Without further ado, we'll get stuck into this video and I should be bringing them more frequently now, I promise. So we're getting to the point now where it's going to be hard to get to that back wall. And that's where the pump's going to be. So I'm going to check that the pump works that came with the van before fitting it. All the pumps come with a little arrow on them to show the water direction. So I'm going to drop that into a bucket of water and then just make sure that it's going to pump that water out and out of that. So this is the mad experiment. But like I say, we're going to pump the water from there into the bucket and make sure that it's not coming out too fast. Negative on first and then positive. I'm just going to hold it. You obviously should actually connect this properly, but let's see. That looks good to me. It took a wee while to fill the sink, but better to have it too slow than way too fast. Happy with that. No drips coming from this. Bone dry. So I'm happy to install that. So that wall all the way down there behind the water containers, above the water containers is where I'm going to fit that pump. So I've got this cable here that I'm going to use because I've just had the realization that I intend on somehow trying to install a fan in that. I'm hoping that you can just buy a kit that converts one of those into a fan one and I don't have to replace the whole unit because that would be a nightmare. But that's going to be right above the hobs. So to have a fan on it would be great. But basically the point is that you're going to now have the pump, probably a kitchen light and the fan all running off of one cable. So it'll be like 6 amps for the pump, 2 amps for the fan and an amp for the light. That's nowhere near 20, so this cable is more than enough. With cable you can't really have too big, so there's no harm in using a cable that's too thick, but there is harm in using a cable that's too thin. So I'm going to run this from somewhere in that corner out to the battery. So where that cable is going to go at the kitchen, I'm actually going to fit one of these. This one is like going to be the main one next to the batteries because it's, you know, it's got loads of different connections, far more than I need in the kitchen. So I'm going to order one today, a smaller one. But basically these are like, what do they call them? Yeah, it's a fuse box. It lets you have lots of different devices all individually fused and connected to one place. And I'll have the fan, maybe a couple sets of lights, and the tap, all connected with the different fuses. But yeah, these are really nifty things. They just give you peace of mind, and it saves you putting inline fuses on everything because you can always have the fuse on this unit rather than all the cables having all their individual fuses. And then when a fuse goes, there'll be a red light showing that there's a problem in the system. So, handy thing. Good morning guys. So it's actually been a very long time since I filmed. With the van being broken down and needing a new cylinder head and all that stuff, we kind of got a little bit put off building him just because it was such a massive investment coming our way and we weren't sure if the mechanic was still wanting to do it, etc, etc. So anyway, yeah, we had a bit of a pause, but the mechanic has taken away the cylinder head now, so half the engine's missing, but it's actually given us the confidence to get building again. As I promised, I bought one of these little things, one of these little fuse boxes. This one's got 6 outputs on it, which is more than enough for in the kitchen. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to install this above the pump under there somewhere. We have slightly changed how we're going to do the kitchen, so I'll quickly run through that now. So that burner that we got with the van, we don't trust. There's definitely some fault with it, so we're going to buy a new one. And we've decided not to recess it into this. So we're going to buy a new burner and attach it to the top. We're actually going to sink the sink into the counter. Originally we were just going to put it up there and out the way, but it kind of dawned on us that there's many days that we don't do the dishes and we want to get driving, so we leave the dishes in the sink, which we can't do if it's up there. So we're going to cut a circular hole in the counter so that the sink sits round about there, just before these handles, and that's going to go in that corner.
Then we're going to have a little corner box where the tap comes out. We'll have some cables running up the back here and across so that we can have lighting somewhere, either up on the ceiling or on here. We'll figure that out. This bit we try to keep as free as possible. Then under here, going to use the same wood as this to cover this. Then there's going to be a curtain that comes down and a bin that goes there. And then of course I'm going to fit the fuse box probably there next to the pump and run the cables up. So that's the idea with the kitchen. And we've actually got things in full swing now. The last few days I went and ordered just everything that we needed for the solar system and the batteries and all that stuff. So once the rest of the stuff arrives, this wall here is going to be where I build the electrics. It's always good to have a sort of like panel to screw all these things to, and it makes it easier to wire them all together. And then we can start building up and bringing the bed across. And then we've also got a storage bin that's going to go across here, and it's going to be big enough to have control panels and some USB ports and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to work on the kitchen today, show you how I get on, and then hopefully within the next few days tons of electronic stuff is going to arrive. So that black cable there is going to stretch from the batteries along here, through here, goes through there, behind that leg, out along here, and then into this space. So there's the pump. So what we're going to need is our little fuse terminal. Then I've got these little pilot connectors. These fit on these bolts. So the cable that comes along there, I'm going to put one of them on the live, one of them on the negative. Then I've got another two which fit under these wee screws, and they're going to be for the pump. The pump is 6 amps, so we need a fuse that's bigger than 6 because that's how much it draws. But if it malfunctions, then it should end up fluctuating over 10 amps, which will blow this fuse nicely. If you had something closer, maybe an 8 amp, then that would work, but it seems that they all come in kind of set sizes. It tends to be dominations of 5, so I'm going to put that 10 amp in. Well, that was fiddly. I'm having to work like this to reach down there, which isn't easy at all. But I have the little panel screwed to the wall, so now all I need to do is strip the cables, cut them to the right length, because you're always better having a shorter cable, then attach it to the fuse box, put the fuse in, and that'll be the pump connected and wired through to the back of the van, where I can connect it to the batteries later on. So now I'm just going to take the end off. That should do. Same on this side. When I'm putting my terminals on, I like to twist them as I push them on. It causes the wire to curl up and it becomes easier to push through. So once the cable's inside, use the crimper just to crimp it down, and that's now holding that cable really strong. So that's them both on, both really strong. Can't pull them off at all. So I'm going to wrap them with electrical tape now, connect them to the fuse box, and then do the same with the pump. I have got a load of that heat shrink plastic in the post, so everything else will be done with that. There's always something with electrical tape that just makes you think there's a dodgy job done underneath. When we got this van, there was lots of just electrical tape stuff, and once you started unraveling it, you realise they're just twisted bits together, and yeah, under electrical tape you can find all sorts of sins really. But for now, electrical tape is going to do just fine. And there we have it, both wrapped, nice and safe, secure as anything. So let's climb back into this tiny little hobbit hole and attach this to the fuse box. So it's pretty self-explanatory. There's the negative, there's the positive. So I'm going to attach it like that. I can't do it one-handed, so I'll show you in a sec. My mum was using power tools in the background, sorry about that. But got the positive and the negative, and then I've just kind of tucked it behind that bit of plywood. So now I need to cut these cables a little bit shorter and then wire them up to the positive and then the negative. This is basically the negative bus at the bottom, and they're the positives. Right, I'd be lying if I said that didn't suck. It really sucked. It's just because the space that I'm trying to fit in. When you fit in a pump, make sure you know which way it's going to feed. Because I'm going to have this one go into the water tank, and then that one's going to go up to the sink. So the live comes out the pump and it goes into the live terminal here. 10 amp fuse. That live goes back to the battery. The negative comes to here, and then the negative from the pump comes up to there. Alright, there we go. We've got another one coming from the positive and the negative that goes there and then up the wall. So that comes out here, and then I've made it so it's long enough to go up the wall and along to the center point. So plenty of cable there to attach the lights to. If I connect that to the battery, that pump is just going to go on. There's no fucking switch. There's no switch. Oh, what an idiot. So this live wire here, I'm going to have to disconnect, cut the end off, connect it to a longer wire, and then feed that up to a switch, and then feed it back down, and then feed it into there. Idiot. So in order to put a switch, I only need it on the live, so I don't need the live and the neutral wire. So to use a bit of my brand new wire that I've spent money on, there's no point. But instead I'm going to use this. So in this van, a lot of the electrics were done with mains cables. As you can see in this cable, there are 3 wires because you've got your live, your neutral and your ground, which you don't have in van cables. You've only got your positive and negative, because the negative goes to the negative of the battery, which is then grounded. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip this live wire out of this house cable. Looking at the gauge on that, it's more than efficient for the pump. It's almost twice as thick as the cable that I've already got in place, so it's going to do absolutely fine. So I'm literally just tearing this from the outer insulation, and then I'm going to use that to put my switch in, which I should have done in the first place. There we have it, a load of wire to use for my live for the switch. Then I've also got a bag of switches that I've already bought, and I'm looking for a particular one. It's not that one. First of all, I think these are suitable for something crazy like 30 amps. So again, 6 amps for the pump, it's not going to be a problem. Sorry about the power tools in the background again. But yeah, with the pump, I don't want it to be able to stay in the on position. You find that you can use a lot less water if it's one of these. Notice how it automatically flicks back into the off position. So that's what I want to use for the water pump. And then when I figure out where it's going to go, I can find a way of bolting that into place. I don't suppose this is waterproof, so I'm going to make sure it's not too close to the flowing water, and that should do the job. So unless you have those little, I'm not sure what they're called, but it's a different type of connector that clips onto those. Unless you have them, then you're going to have to solder, or at least that's what I do. Some people just strip the wire, feed it through, twist it, and then wrap it in tape. It's not the safest way. Solder's obviously going to hold it better. So here's how I do it anyway. I've got a little gas powered solder tool, piece of wood to leave it on when it gets hot, lighter to get it going, gas to top it up, some solder, crimpers that have also got the wire stripper, the cable and the switch that we're going to connect it to. So it's pretty simple. I'm going to strip off a good length of that, feed it through there, twist it, and then drop hot solder onto the twist so that it basically welds it. Then we'll wrap it in black tape, and we're going to do the same with both sides. So there we go, I wrapped each terminal individually, and then I just put a little bit around the outside as well, just to keep the wires together. So that is going to go in the corner somewhere. So now I'm going to feed this wire down, go through to the cab, pull it through, and then again push it through this gap here. So I'm in here again, which is a nightmare to work in. So I'm going to cut that, unplug that, connect that to one end of this, and then connect the other end of it into there. I'll show you when I've done that, because honestly, to be in this space, filming and working on it is damn near impossible. So I'll catch you in a second. Take 2. So the negative comes from the pump, goes to the negative bus bar. The positive comes out, it goes up that brown wire to the switch, and then comes back down and then goes into the live where there's the 10 amp fuse. So now the pump is on a switch, which I should have done in the first place. But sometimes, you know, you just get ahead of yourself, don't you? The batteries have arrived. So I've unloaded all the other stuff that was in the van, and I'm going to find out where I'm going to put them. You might have noticed a sexy new floor. It's just like foam tile things from Aldi. Like I've already mentioned, this backboard's going to be where we mount all the kind of electrical stuff. So the batteries are going to want to be near that. Because we load stuff from the back, because this is going to be like the garage, probably want this to be storage space, so I'm thinking the batteries are going to be best here and here, either that way or that way. So in the last van we had 2 95 amp hour batteries, which is what, 190 total. So this time 240, and an extra 50 amp hours. And of course with a battery you can only really use half of it, so it should give us an extra 2.5 hours at 10 amps, which is my laptop, which is usually what we calculate stuff on, is how much I can run my laptop for. They take up a reasonable amount of space, it's not too bad, still leaves a ton of garage left. So got this bit of wood, I'm going to put a bit of frame like that, and then another bit like that. I'm just going to put that in position, take the Stanley knife and cut to there, and then do the same level way to get this foam out from underneath. The negative that will be going to the ground, my ground point is probably going to be over here somewhere because I've got access to the chassis of the vehicle, which is going to be where I'm going to ground. It probably makes sense to have the negatives on this side, positives on this side. So I'm going to flip the batteries around and then screw all this together, and it should be nice and secure. There we have it, not moving at all. Just screwed in there, 2 in there, and then 1 going down in there. I'm going to trim away this, try and get a nice straight line across there along this back edge. And then this excess I'm going to keep aside, no matter how small it is, because it could be useful in the bottom of drawers or cupboards or something. Just anything to prevent noise. If you live in a van, you'll know that it can get quite noisy with everything just kind of rattling around as you drive about. So the more you can pin things in and suppress them and put squidgy things under them, the better. So there we have it, the van is now ready to have the batteries installed and start building up all the electrical system. So the next couple of videos are going to be about electrics for the most part. The next video I'm going to do is going to be about split charge relays and how to fit them. I'll also be installing my AGM batteries to give the van some power in the back. It's always pretty exciting getting the batteries in, because then you can start to get your lights up and USBs plugged in and all this kind of stuff. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I'm sorry it's been so long. It's been a really hard month, but I'm really looking forward to getting this van built, getting it on the road and bringing you guys some adventure again, because I've missed just being out in the woods, exploring, swimming, doing my usual stuff. Anyway, I'll catch you guys soon for the next video. See you later.